Ding dong! The witch is gone. That is right. Lori Lightfoot is out as mayor. Now, she's still in mayor to the end of the term, but there is no path forward for her to come back and be the mayor again. So, we will be talking about that and what that means for the people of Chicago, where they go from there, and what we do with that. In other news, Pramila Jayapal and Randy Weingarten both weigh in on the Supreme Court's decision on the student loan cancellation, as more and more mainstream media outlets come out and say that, yes, this is going to happen, be prepared. So we'll go over some of that. Chris Wray gets an interview with Bret Baier in which he admits what we've pretty much known from the beginning, and that is the lab leak theory. And some other things get brought up in the interview, so we'll be talking about that. And Merrick Garland gets dragged in front of Congress, in front of the Senate rather, to be questioned about his role in the January 6th Selfie Fest, among many other things, so we'll be talking a bit about that. Plus, we've got a nice long segment of government officials behaving badly. I'm very excited for this one, so strap yourselves in, stick around, have some fun, and stick around on Contemporary. So, we'll see you in just a minute, and I was the one flying the balloon. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. You ever work so many days in a row that, and, you know, don't sleep the night before, that you get a little bit confused while you're doing something you literally do every single day? And by which I mean, of course, the cold open, that you forget how it goes. Yeah, you guys just witnessed that there. So I'm sitting over, I'm thinking about that while the title card is up. I'm like, wow, I do this every day. I give the news, and then I say, I'm the balloon pilot. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Except for today, where I decided to throw a bunch of extra adjectives in there. Man, do I need some more sleep. But we'll get some sleep after this, because I am probably going to be skipping dinner tonight here. We've got a lot to go over here yet today. I think some of the stuff is going to get skipped over just because we have so much duplicate story on the Lightfoot thing, but we're going to be having some fun with that. Plus, government officials behaving badly. Some of the stuff that I have pushed to the end, I think is going to show up in things I like and things that I hate tomorrow. But I've also got a nice, heartwarming rendition of something that something I'm thankful for here. Yes, I know, we'll be going over again how I'm thankful that I moved, but there's actually a concrete thing happening with that, so that'll be at the end of the show today. Over here on Contemporary, before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Breckenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys, go check out Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, The No Gimmicks Podcast, and more, as I gather a group of people who are dedicated to bringing you news and culture from the common man for the common man. That is right. For too long, we have got our news from people who wear suits that cost more than our houses and have no idea what it's like to live down here in reality with the rest of us. It's time for that to change. It's time to go back and look into getting Your news, your memes, your music, your culture, your religion from people who have had to make the same kinds of decisions that you are. So go check out all that great programming. We're working together to bring up some money to get these people together so we can build them a website and a place that they can video host without having to worry about being canceled like we do on our regular podcast platforms, YouTube, etc. So go check out all that great programming. Let's get down into the news and get started here with... We're going to start with finance today, as we usually do. And I'm not going to forget to flip over the card today either, by the way. Like I did yesterday. I was already into the main news of the day before I realized that I didn't have anything on the screen. Wrong button. Let's get that up. Let's get started with the Dow for the day. Let me get the live chat up here for you guys. See what you guys are doing. Looks like we got a couple of people already checking us out here. And let's get started. Looking at the Dow to start with. By the way, if you do have commentary on this is not going to be like the morning show. And a reminder to people on Instagram, if you are watching this over on Instagram, you are only, and I say I get the news behind me here because you can't see this over on the Instagram. You can't hear the music, you can't hear the videos, you can't hear anything that I'm hearing through these headphones right now because there's no way for me to broadcast from my computer. That may be changing in the near future. It looks like Restream actually supports Instagram now, so we'll be talking a bit about that. And I'll start experimenting with that just a little bit as well, but that's coming up in the near future as well. Let's get started with the news, and feel free to comment along. Sometimes it'll get read, especially this week because we're not having a live chat session, not until next Monday. All right, let's get started. Starting with the Dow. The Dow was a roller coaster today. A little bit of rise, a little bit of fall, well, a lot of fall, a little bit of rise, and a lot of fall again. It rose and kept itself back steady before falling once again and coming back to a rise to close 5.14 points up from the previous close, 0.016%, so barely eking out a win at the very end of the day. Looks like it was starting to crash again as we went through this, but ending at 661.84 on the day, so just barely again a win. Looking at the Bitcoin for the last 24 hours, we see a almost inverted curve off of this without all the roller coaster runs as well. Bitcoin initially falling before rising and staying up throughout the rest of the day. Did fall again towards the end of the day, but keeping itself mostly up throughout the day, ending $514 and 20 US cents up. That is up 2.22% to $23,649 and 60 US cents if you have Bitcoin. If you have one Bitcoin, that is what you have in equivalency of US dollars. And looking at the gas prices around the area, still holding steady from yesterday, although the BP was at 3 even when we looked at it yesterday, so I still have not seen the jump back up around the local area yet, but I know that that's coming as well. So steady from yesterday, although on the Isthmus, the Amoco has jumped up to 316 from 302 from what we were seeing yesterday. It's coming. I hope you're prepared, and I hope that you took my advice from yesterday and went off and topped off the tank for the little bit of cheap gas that, well, cheap relatively from what we're probably going to see in the next few weeks. And let's grab one from IBD. Dow futures rise as Salesforce stock soars, and an advertisement comes in. Hey, look, Salesforce, an advertisement. Tesla stock falls amid investor day from Ed Carson. Dow futures rose modestly after hours while the S&P and the Nasdaq edged higher. Tesla Investor Day is underway while Salesforce, Snowflake, and other software earnings headlined a busy overnight session. The stock market rally suffered further damage Wednesday as the 10-year yield hit 4% intraday. Some leading stocks flashed buy signals on the news, but the S&P and Nasdaq headed lower. Apple fell back below its 200-day line as the International Data Corp now sees global smartphone sales falling slightly again in 2023 versus its prior forecast for a modest bounce. Yeah, with the exception of planned obsolescence, I think a lot of people are going to be sticking around and just sticking with the phone that they have. Now, of course, I just went out and bought a new phone, but I am very, very comfortable in the position that I moved to work, for work. I'm very comfortable in that, and very, very, very comfortable in the fact that when the layoffs come around, I'm not going to be the one on the table. I am not going to be the one whose head is on the chopping block when layoffs come around, if they come around. We do run a pretty lean shop where we're at right now, so I don't think layoffs are going to hit us specifically, but where we're at, I don't see it as being a problem. Apple fell back below its... no, we read that one already. Tesla Investor Day opened with expectations for major announcements, but so far there haven't been any, despite speculation of a new EV showcased. Tesla said that the event that the next generation platform or vehicles will come at a later date. CEO Elon Musk's Master Plan 3 involved the world making a huge push for clean energy. Tesla is still expected to confirm an upcoming Model 3 upgrade and announce its plans to build an EV plant in Mexico. Tesla stock fell modestly overnight as Investor Day continued. Notable software makers Salesforce, Splunk, Box, Okta, and Snowflake reported late Wednesday. CRM and Okta were big winners overnight, while Snowflake, Box, and Splunk retreated. Alright, and with that, on the futures, Dow futures rose 0.45 versus fair value. CRM is a Dow component. S&P and NASDAQ tilted higher. Tesla is a big NASDAQ component. The Labor Department will release weekly jobless claims at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow, Eastern Time. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So that is what we are seeing from the markets. Let's have a look at what's happening elsewhere in finance. From NBC News, mortgage demand from home buyers drops to lowest levels in nearly 3 decades. You don't think this housing bubble is going to pop at some point here with news like this? I hope you didn't buy at the peak. I'm kind of glad that I didn't. I know the temptation was there. From Deanna Olick of CNBC. Mortgage rates moved higher again last week, pushing buyers back to the sidelines just as spring housing market is supposed to be heating up. Good luck with that. Mortgage applications to purchase a home dropped 6% last week compared with the previous week, according to Mortgage Bankers Association seasonally adjusted index. Volume was 44% lower than the same week a year ago and now sitting at a 28-year low. This is the average contract interest rate for 30-year fixed rates with confirming loan balances, $726,200 or less, increased to 6.71% from 6.62%, with points increasing to 0.77 from 0.75, including the origination fee for loans with 20% down payment. That is the highest rate since November of last year. And it's only going to go higher, just so you know. Mortgage rates have moved 50 points higher in just the past month. Last February, rates were in the 4% range. Data on inflation, employment, and economic activity have signaled that inflation may not be cooling as quickly as anticipated, which continues to put upward pressure on rates, said Joel Kahn, an MBA economist. Applications to refinance a home loan dropped 6% for the week and were 74% lower year over year. Yeah, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, even given the fact that our highest rate was in June of last year, if you are refinancing a home right now, unless you are in absolute utter dire straits and you need to borrow against it or lose literally everything that you have, and you have the value to do it, if you were refinancing a home right now, you're out of your mind. Plain and simple, you are. What is the word for what you are? You are dumb. Even if you're taking it out against another 30 years to try to lower the payment, the interest rate being at 6.5% is eating up what you would have saved by stretching it out for 30 years. No one, I can't believe that it's as high as it is. I'm not going to lie. There's no logical reason for it to be that way. Refinance applications account for less than a third of all applications and remain more than 70% behind last year's pace, as a majority of home buyers are already locked into lower rates, added Kahn. Mortgage rates haven't done much to start this week, but the trajectory now appears to be higher after a brief respite in January. Lower rates to start the year caused a brief surge in home buying, but mortgage demand from home buyers this month would seem to indicate a very slow spring is ahead. So that is where we are at on that. And I don't know why people think that our economy is booming so well. Nobody's buying houses. People are losing their jobs left and right in their good IT and programming jobs. And there's really no skilled labor or unskilled labor out there for them. I mean, even the retail sector is closing stuff down and left and right. This is not good news. I might not buy when I'm ready to, just because of what the rates are doing. And I live in a closet. But that is where we are at for that. Let's get into the main news of the day. What we're all here for. Whether you're watching the replay or watching live, what we are all here for. And this is from Fox News to start with. And I'm actually going to change the music before we get into any of this. Why? Because I think this is a bit more appropriate. You know the song. John Williams, if you want to copyright pop me, you can kiss my ass. That is right. The empire is over. Chicago ousts embattled Mayor Lori Lightfoot as race heads to runoff without her. From Brandon Gillespie. Democrat Mayor Lori Lightfoot has lost her bid for re-election as the race heads to runoff without her after no candidate reached the required 50% vote threshold to be elected. Lightfoot faced challenges from 8 other candidates in the race, including Chicago Public Schools CEO and City Budget Director Paul Vallis, who held a significant double-digit lead in the polls ahead of Election Day. Leading up to the election, Lightfoot also narrowly trailed Brandon Johnson, a member of the Cook County Board of Commissioners, by 2 points, and was in a dead heat with Democrat Rep. Jesus Chuy Garcia, who represents Illinois' 4th Congressional District. Valles received enough votes to head to the runoff and will face Brandon Johnson on April 4th. Lightfoot conceded her bid on Tuesday, stating, "I'll be rooting here and praying here for the next mayor of Chicago." You know, and I can't take full credit for the idea to use that song to talk about Lori Lightfoot tonight. I really can't. Because that was something that I got from, I was listening to Styx earlier, and one of his live chatters had mentioned the fact that we should get a bunch of little people, and, you know, I'm not going to say the M word, obviously, because this is YouTube, or some of you are watching, some of you are on the other platforms. By the way, check out the other platforms if you want to help me out, too, because it's much easier for me to get paid if you're over on DLive or Twitch. It's much easier to support your favorite creator here. But one of the live chatters brought up the idea of get a bunch of little people to run around in the Ewok costumes playing that song on Lightfoot's last day when she is leaving the residence. And I thought about that after the fact, and I really think that, I wonder what that actually would cost to do. I mean, you know that those little people are going to come out and demand the highest wages possible for this, so... But I think that it would be an appropriate end for a horrifying career. And Valles and Johnson were 33.8% and 20.3% respectively, with Lightfoot trailing by 3.2 by the end of it, with incumbency advantage on top of that. Crime was seen as a central theme of the race, and the city's soaring crime rate served as the backdrop to Lightfoot's dismal approval rating, according to one poll. She faced sharp criticism for her less-than-cordial relationship with law enforcement throughout her tenure, which saw a drastic reduction in police officer headcount to coincide with the rise in crime. There's an interesting twist to that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but it looks like somebody high up in the police guild, I don't know if it was the chief, but somebody high up, did resign over the fact that she lost, so we'll be talking about that. During her time in office, homicides in Chicago rose to their highest number in 25 years in 2021. according to police department records, outpacing New York City and LA. Lightfoot frequently touted Chicago as a safe city and defended her record handling of the issue, including touting a multi-tiered strategy to curb gang and gun crimes last August. Vias portrayed himself as a law and order candidate and received support from Chicago's police unions. He was also a sharp critic of Lightfoot's handling of the crime. Chicago law allows for mail-in ballots received after Election Day to be counted as long as they are postmarked by February 28th and received by March 14th. Okay, let's talk about this for just a second. Will this change anything? No, probably not. Because whoever is going to be in that position is going to need to answer to the mob. We're going to be completely honest with this, and this is coming from somebody who's lived in Chicago Metro. Kenosha is officially considered a part of Chicago, and they've got the Metro line that goes to Kenosha. It's the last stop on there. But with that being said, as far as Chicago goes, you do have to appease the mob. Now, one of the things that's happening with this, and part of the reason that I think, and I've heard a couple creators talk about this, one of the things that is happening that I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to the fact is Lightfoot was hard on the institutions that are run by the mob. The teachers' unions. She was getting flack and pushback from them, and the police unions as well. She was not well liked by the institutions that are run by the mob, and I think that's a part of the reason that she tanked. Do I think that this election is legitimate? Well, I don't know if I can even question that on YouTube right now, so we're going to wander around that. But as far as what happens in Chicago, there is going to be a part of this that's going to be able to be questioned. Whether or not you can do it on a public platform is a completely different story. But yes, as of right now, Mayor Gollum is gone. Beetlejuice has left the building. They didn't say her name 3 times. And she's officially conceded too. Like, she's not going to come back and try to embattle this because, well, for the most part, she's not going up against a Republican contender. That's going to be the big part of this. So, Lightfoot, we wish you a fun Let's read a little bit more about this. From ABC 7 Eyewitness News, out of the Chicagoland area, Rosemont, in fact. Wow, it's really warm in Rosemont. That's not that much further south than where we're at. Chicago mayor election results. Bias and Johnson set for April runoff as Lightfoot concedes. From Jessica D'Onofrio and Craig Wall. The field of 9 has now narrowed to 2 as Paul Vias will face Brandon Johnson in a runoff in April. Mayor Lightfoot will not see a second term, the first time an incumbent mayor hasn't been reelected in decades. Vias has wasted no time hitting the campaign trail Wednesday morning as he stopped on the south side and made an appearance on the Mays Jackson radio show. Then he shook a few hands and kissed a few babies as he left. Later, he greeted people and campaigned for votes in the Loop. I'm thrilled with how we are doing, and I think we're really taking off. I think we've got great momentum, he said. Vias is the former head of CPS and considered a conservative Democrat. He coasted to first place finish, riding a wave of concern about public safety, which was the central theme of his campaign. Now he will face off against Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson. Johnson, a 46-year-old former teacher, has already come out swinging, saying Vias has failed everywhere that he has been. Vias has said that he wants to keep his campaign positive and stick to the issues, which is a stark and marked change in politics. This actually might make him coast to re-election victory now, or election victory rather. Now, I can't say what he did during his tenure. I can't say that because I didn't see any of that. I don't know during his tenure if he attacked Lightfoot, if he attacked what was happening in Chicago, or anything else like that. But honestly, we need to see more of what he's doing on the national stage. I don't vote in Chicago, but if I was in Chicago, if like that was the only place that I could go to get a job and I had to live there for whatever reason, on that, if he could keep to that promise from now until April 4th, he'd have my vote. No, hands down, no problem. I would have no problem giving a vote to somebody like that who was trying to talk about the issues, not how the other person is done. Because that's been the problem of our entire political system. For as long as I've been studying this, we don't know what Democrats stand for. It's always orange man bad, and we don't really know what Republicans stand for either. It's just the disaster policies of Joe Biden. There is nothing else in politics, and I want to see something else. Now, for the most part, I want to just see them all leave me alone, but barring that, if they do have to come in and interfere with my life, I want to see how they're planning to do so and improve it, not necessarily how much they disapprove of the other person. We know you disapprove of the other person in the other party. That's why you're running for office. Brandon's going to say what he's going to say, Vias said. People are going to examine his record and see that there's not much other than a union organizer who is on the CTU's payroll. Brandon's not going to have much of a record to talk about, so I'm going to continue to talk about issues, to offer subs and tentative solutions, particularly on the issues of crime and the issue of quality of schools and the issue of affordability. Johnson, who's considered a left-of-center progressive candidate backed by the Chicago Teachers Union, did a series of interviews on ABC 7 Wednesday, but planned to kick off his runoff campaign in earnest on Thursday. Our campaign caught fire just a few weeks ago. The city of Chicago certainly reacted and responded to our message of building a better, stronger, safer Chicago. I'm looking forward to retiring this tale of two cities, he said. He said he's looking forward to earning the support of voters who cast their ballot for other candidates. He has said that he has spent his entire career working to protect the middle class. But really, have you? As a teachers union leader, I don't see that. Skip over this one. Some statistics for you, for those of you keeping score at home. Lori Lightfoot becomes the first Chicago mayor in 40 years to lose re-election. NBC News reports from Natasha Korecki. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot lost her bid for re-election on Tuesday, ending her historic run as the city's first black woman and first openly gay person to serve in the position. Lightfoot, a Democrat, failed to get enough votes in the 9-person race to move on to an April 4th runoff, according to projections by the Associated Press. Paul Vias, a former CEO of Chicago Schools, will face Brandon Johnson, a Cook County commissioner. We know that one. Ideologically, the choice between Vias and Johnson is stark. Vias ran as a moderate law and order candidate, while Johnson ran on an unabashedly progressive agenda. But Chicagoans sent a message that they wanted change, rejecting both an incumbent mayor and a sitting congressman. Lightfoot is the first incumbent elected Chicago mayor to lose re-election since 1983. That's right, this is the first time in my lifetime, because I was born in 84, that an incumbent Chicago mayor has not made it to the re-election bid. Lightfoot conceded Tuesday at her party in downtown Chicago, saying, "Obviously we didn't win the election day, but I stand here with my head held high." Lightfoot has been dogged by persistent crime, which has been a top concern among Chicagoans. Crime spiked during her term, though she repeatedly touted that it dropped year over year in 2022. That's actually probably true because it went out of control in 2020 and 2021 to record highs. It's just like when people said that we had so much recovery under Obama. There was no place for the economy to go but up. It had been so thoroughly wrecked by the war in Iraq and the failed Obama policies that during his second term there was literally no place for it to go but up. Valles was widely expected to emerge from the first round of voting, having built his campaign around a tough on crime theme and garnering support in the vote-rich northern and northwest sides of the city. He also got the backing of the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police, which is why I believe that nothing is going to change, because the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police is a mob-run industry, which means that there's not a lot that he's going to be able to do in his position as mayor without getting the approval of those people. So, but first in 40 years. A little bit more statistics from CNN. Lightfoot's laws make Chicago the latest major city to face a mayoral test over crime. From Eric Bradner. Lightfoot rode into the Chicago mayor's office in 2019 as a reform candidate, offering a break from the city's clubby political scene while making history as the first black woman and first out gay person to hold the office. She won all 50 wards. 4 years later, the second city's voters demonstrated how drastically its political dynamics have shifted. When Lightfoot on Tuesday failed to finish in the top two and advanced to an April runoff, Chicago is now the third major city in recent years, with a mayoral election that will test the attitudes among a heavily Democratic electorate towards crime and policing. Let's see, what were the two before that? They keep talking about Chicago. But they don't tell us what the other two cities were. Oh, Eric Adams and, what was it, Garcetti in Los Angeles? Okay, yeah. The dynamics in Chicago echoed the mayor's races in New York City, won by Eric Adams, a former police captain, who wound up being worse somehow. And Los Angeles, where then Rep. Karen Bass defeated Rick Caruso, a billionaire developer who had pumped more than $100 million into a campaign focused on law and order. Bass defeated Caruso in part by offering her own plans to increase the number of police officers on the streets and declare a state of emergency to address the crisis of homelessness. Yeah, how's that going, by the way? While Valles' message bears similarities to Adams in New York, the messengers are different. Adams is black and Valles is white. Yeah, that's what we need to focus on right now. Good job. We have got an article from Ron Helton's favorite publication, from his favorite politician, from Bloomberg. Chicago police chief resigns after Lightfoot loses re-election. From Elizabeth Campbell, Shruti Singh, and Isis Almeida. Chicago's police chief announced his resignation a day after Lightfoot became the first mayor of the third largest U.S. city to lose a re-election bid in 40 years. David Brown said on Wednesday that he would leave his post effective March 16th, according to an emailed statement from the mayor, who has commended his service. Lightfoot lost Tuesday's election after failing to overcome voter dissatisfaction with rising crime, high-profile corporate departure, and the city's slow economic recovery from the pandemic. I will be stepping down as Chicago Police Superintendent effective March 16th, so the incoming mayor can begin the process as soon as possible to hire the next superintendent, Brown said in a separate statement. It has been an honor and a privilege to work alongside the brave men and women of the Chicago Police Department. Ron Helton says he should go ahead and quit. Somebody has to follow her around and collect her tears. That's mean. That's funny, but it's mean. Chicago is faced with rising violence that sparked outrage among residents and business leaders. Billionaire Ken Griffin cited violence as a reason for moving his Citadel hedge fund to Florida, while McDonald's Corporation Chief Executive Officer Chris Kempczynski told the Economic Club of Chicago last year that it had become harder to attract talent to the Windy City. Yeah, I wouldn't go there. Crime incidences jumped 41% last year and 33% since 2019, the year Lightfoot took office. At the same time, the number of officers fell 12% in the period, as the pandemic sparked a wave of retirements and the police budget ballooned to a record $1.9 billion for 2023. Now, why do I think he actually quit? It's probably not because of the fact that he wants bias to be able to hire his own person. I think he's afraid of an investigation, to be completely honest. I mean, the mayor's office has all the records of everything that could have possibly gone wrong that was looked over. And I'm pretty sure that he believes that if he's still in his position at the time of the changeover, then either he's going to jail or the pitchforks and the torches are coming out. But thank you, Michael Bloomberg, for that insight. And the last one before we move on to student debt stuff again, which we're not going to spend as long on that as we have in recent days. I know that it's boring. I know that we say the same thing over and over again with student debt. Just pay it back. And if you wipe out all that debt, then you'll wipe out what's left of the economy. Which I know for Ron Helton is no problem, but for the rest of us, we'd like to actually be able to compete in a free market, or whatever passes for one with our government. But the last one on Lightfoot comes from Fox News. Token University hire dodges questions on Lori Lightfoot's re-election loss, blames the GOP for crime surge. Because she always does. From Brandon Gillespie. No video. White House Press Secretary, token diversity hire on Wednesday, avoided a question on Democrat Mayor Lori Lightfoot's re-election loss and appeared to blame Republicans in Congress for the surge in crime rates across the country. During the daily White House briefing, diversity hire said that she was going to withhold commenting on the race after being asked by a reporter about concerns over crime rates leading to Lightfoot's loss. The diversity hire went on to accuse Republicans of taking steps she suggested contributed to rising crime. So let me just first speak to the mayor's race. What the president is committed to working with whomever people in Chicago, or the people on the ground, whichever, if it's a city or a state, whomever they chose to represent them. Diversity hire said. So if that is the case, then we will continue to be the case, and I'm going to withhold commenting for any specific race. She touted that what she said were President Biden's accomplishments on addressing rising crime, including for calling for the recruitment of more police officers and the call to ban assault weapons, but accused Republicans of doing the opposite, despite being sharp critics of Democrats' crime policies. That's a good idea, Ron Helton. When you think of the COPS program, which is something that the president put forward, then they wanted to defund it and to take that away, and you just think about that leading to the defunding of police. Just recently they called on defunding the FBI, and you think about the border security funding, they want to take that away as well. Wow. I do want a federal police force defunded. As far as the locals, I'm not a fan of them either, but has been talked about in my Discord before on numerous occasions. One of the things that we do enjoy is the idea of a locally elected sheriff. Somebody who's beholden to the people, not whoever is the executive in the municipality or the state. Honestly, I think if police chiefs were elected and not appointed, we would have a lot better crime rate just across the country. And we wouldn't need an FBI. Crime became a central theme in the Chicago races. Rates skyrocketed around the city, leading to low approval ratings for Deadfoot. So, not even Diversity Hired wants to go talk about this. Alright, let's talk about there are only a couple updates here. Let's talk about what happened today in the last few days with student debt forgiveness. First, I hate to do this to you, but I'm going to subject you to one Randy Weingarten.
And frankly, and this is what really pisses me off, during the pandemic, we understood that small businesses were hurting, and we helped them, and it didn't go to the Supreme Court to challenge it. Big businesses were hurting, and we helped them, and it didn't go to the Supreme Court to challenge it. All of a sudden, when it's about our students, they challenge it, the corporations challenge it, the student loan lenders challenge it. That is not right. That is not fair, and that is what we are fighting as well when we say cancel student debt. And frankly, and this is what really pisses me off.
Hold on. I think I can translate this for you. Let's try listening to this again. Come on, get all the fucking theatrics out of here. No, this isn't the soundbite that I want. Yeah, it is. Alright, let's try this again.
Bei Diktaten wirken wir nicht mit. Sie mögen ein Diktat als Diktat uns aufoktroyieren.
It is, and it's the same thing, by the way, when when Biden gets all, the evil MAGA Republicans, and Randy Weingarten is the same way. It's when they get up there and they get into this animated pose, and by the way, that was horrible execution of a really good and funny idea. But they go through this, and they want you to know that they're serious about taking down the evil others when they get up there and get animated like that. Now, I want to point just something out here with Randy Weingarten, and that is that we were assured in the beginning that the grown-ups were in charge in this admin. That's what we were assured of when Biden took over. What grown-up argument ends with, and that is not fair? Life isn't fair. I'm going to ask you something. And I don't talk about myself a lot. But I'm gonna waive that here for just this instant off of this. Because I think it's important at this point to bring up. Do you think that I thought it was fair that I got out of college in one of the worst economic downturns in history, and that the only jobs that were available when people who were out into the workforce just a couple years before me enjoyed a booming job market? Do you think I found that fair? I'm going to tell you right now, I didn't. But did I get up and make a speech and say, this is not fair, I should have a job, and why are they passing me over when, I clearly know what I'm doing here, and some of the labor pool that's around me doesn't know their ass from a hole in the ground? No. I got up and I went to work while I continued to look for another job. And when it came down to it, I moved markets again, which I just did again. Do you think I think it's fair that I have had to live, and there was no help for me at all while I was going through this, with severe clinical depression based on the fact that my ex-girlfriend was literally trying to convince me to kill myself? And she admitted to that. Do I think that's fair? No, absolutely not. Do I bitch about it? No, I move on with my life. Life isn't fair. Yes, these children were duped. But now they have to take the consequences with that, just like I had to. Plain and simple. Life is not fair, Randy Weingarten. Corey D'Angelo says, defund teachers' unions. Pramila Jayapal also has something to say on this one. She is just as animated. I bet you if we went and did that clip again, by the way, over the top of that, it would line up pretty well as well. I'm going to test that theory. Let's back up to find where this starts from. And let's listen.
This is about justice. Say it back to me. This is about justice. This is about freedom. This is about economic security.
Wow, that's even scarier because I remember seeing some of these speeches on the History Channel when I was a kid. Back when they could still talk about Nazis on the History Channel when I was a kid. I remember seeing some of those speeches where the Fuhrer would come out and yell out a sloganeering statement and have the people repeat it back to him. This is scary crap, guys.
This is about our future. Let's cancel this student debt. Let's keep the movement going, and let's bring justice to everyone. Thank you all so much.
Hold on. Let's see how this works.
Deutschland kommen und muss sagen, den Frieden wollen wir, aber diese ununterbrochene Entrückung lehnen wir ab. Und die Entbehrung ertragen wir nicht. Bei Diktaten.
Wow, like for the first 15 seconds of that line, I didn't plan that. That lined up a lot better than I thought that it did. That scared me a little bit. How much the audio and her lips moving went together. One other thing that I want to address with this before we get into the actual meat and potatoes of the articles of this. And I talked about this yesterday. The people who are advocating for the cancellation of student debt believe that with that flick of the pen, I don't have a pen over here. How do I not have a pen on my desk? Oh, yeah, I type everything. With a flick of a pen, that this all goes away. The money doesn't get paid back. It just disappears out of the economy. That's because they have no idea how economics works. But no, what they're advocating for is big bank billionaires getting another bailout. Getting money back from the government on the taxpayer dime that is going to make them richer. You see problem number one. And problem number two is the fact that let's say we actually go down the route that they think that's we're going to go down. We're going to go down this route. And we snap our fingers and this money just disappears out of the economy. That is going to put a large sector of the finance sector out of work. Not just detract from the pockets of the billionaire bankers, but it's actually going to ripple down. The servicers are not going to have jobs anymore. They're going to be laid off, possibly fired, and have to go out and fight and compete for yet another job. You will shut down large swaths of medium-sized businesses who have no reason to exist. And take out probably what's left of our staggering economy. With such a rapid deflation because of taking that cash out of the economy, you think the Great Recession was bad. What you would do to the economy by taking that level of cash out of the economy on an instant like that would rival what happened in the 30s during the Great Depression. Let's read from USA Today. Regardless of SCOTUS decision, 25 million people will have to repay student debt. Here's how to prepare. I'm not going to read from Medora Lee just yet. I'm going to tell you how to prepare. Call your servicer, whoever it may be, and get yourself into an income-driven repayment plan and find out exactly how much you owe and budget for it. It is going to be difficult because they're putting this and they're pairing this at a point where we are about to have the bottom fall out of the rest of the economy. Just like it was when I came into the workforce for the first time out of college. I'm not going to tell you it's going to be easy, but I'm going to tell you that there are going to be steps that you can take to prepare for it. But let's see what Medora Lee has to say. Whatever happens to President Brandon's student loan forgiveness plan, currently at the Supreme Court, at least 25 million people will still have student debt to repay. That's because the roughly 45 million people who hold student debt, Biden said only 20 million would have their debt completely erased if the plan is upheld by the Supreme Court, leaving 25 million who would still have to make some payments. So those millions of people should prepare and quickly to start paying again, experts say. Student loan payments are expected to resume either 60 days after the Supreme Court issues a decision on the relief program or 60 days after June 30th. Whichever comes first. That means repayment is likely to start this summer or fall. The average borrower has around $38,000 in loans and will still need to make payments even if the current forgiveness plan goes into effect, according to a recent survey from Highway Benefits, an employee benefits platform company. The survey also showed that 89% of student debt holders said that they weren't ready to restart payments. Well, they weren't ready to start payments 6 months after they got into school either, but, things happen. And the 27% said 1/3 of their income will go towards their loans. With the cost of living climbing and amid challenging economic times, borrowers need to prepare as soon as possible. If you're just now starting to think about it, I might even say you're pushing the envelope of being too late, said Derek Zenny, co-founder and managing partner at Carolina Wealth Management. How many Americans with student debt does this affect? A simple debt forgiveness application was launched around mid-October. About 26 million Americans had already applied for forgiveness, and 16 million people already received debt relief approval when the Department of Education stopped taking applications November 11th, the day after a federal judge in Texas declared the debt forgiveness plan unlawful. 2 cases against the student debt relief are being heard now at the Supreme Court. The White House estimated over the summer that up to 43 million federal loan borrowers, including roughly 20 million borrowers who would have had their full remaining balances canceled, would have been eligible for relief. Around 45 million Americans have student loans collectively worth $1.75 trillion. Or, by the way, roughly 0.75% of the GDP. Think about that for a second. So, yeah, start planning for it now. It's coming. From Yahoo Finance, student loan forgiveness could hinge on debt relief's connection to the Pinko Pox. From Alexis Keenan. Neither of the 2 cases argued before the Supreme Court Tuesday is guaranteed to settle whether the Biden admin is legally empowered to wipe out hundreds of billions of dollars in federal student debt. The court could sidestep the question altogether if the justices decide that the parties challenging the debt relief plan lack standing or the right to have their grievances heard. However, if the court does tackle the scope of the executive branch's power, its decision could hinge on whether Biden's debt relief plan, purportedly to alleviate financial hardships for more than 40 million American student loan borrowers, is actually tied to the Pinko Pox. That's because the HEROES Act, a law that the admin taps as authority for forgiving student loans, empowers the U.S. Department of Education Secretary to waive or modify laws or regulations concerning federal student loan programs for student loan recipients who suffer direct economic hardship as the direct result of a war or other military operation or national emergency. The law further specifies that the Secretary's authority is meant to ensure that the student loan borrowers experiencing an emergency-caused economic hardship are not placed in a worse position financially in relation to these loans. According to the admin, the pinko-pox pandemic is just the sort of national emergency contemplated by the HEROES Act because it directly caused economic hardship for certain student loan borrowers. Basically, and I hate to put such a fine point on it, it's the government coming in and trying to fix a problem that the government created. Which, by the way, does make me question whether or not they created the problem so that they would have something to go back and fix and buy votes. Solicitor General Elizabeth Pregelar, who argued on behalf of the admin in both cases, said during Tuesday's hearings that student loan borrowers' forbearance for long periods, including those who took advantage of the pinko-pox-related repayment pauses set to expire within months, are more likely to default on payments, particularly those with annual income of less than $125,000. Justice Roberts, Justice Kagan, and Justice Barrett questioned whether the pandemic is directly responsible for degrading the indebtedness of all student loan borrowers entitled to forgiveness under the relief plan. It seems you know a real mixture of the pinko-pox and non-pinko-pox related things, Justice Kagan said. As for the government's claim that forbearance compounds borrowers' economic peril, Kagan said, I guess I wonder is what about the pinko-pox, or is that just something about what happens when you excuse loan payments for a long period of time, and how is it that gets to be converted into an emergency pinko-pox rationale? So even Kagan is coming on and saying, hey, was this the pox, or was this the fact that we paused this for so long? Which actually is starting to say that this might go more than 6-3 against the Biden admin, which would be interesting. From CNN Politics, John Roberts takes center stage in the battle over student loan forgiveness. From Joan Biskupic. Chief Justice Roberts pounded away on the price tag, about $500 billion, and I think it's going to be more than that, by the way. For the Biden admin's student loan forgiveness program during oral arguments Tuesday. But as he repeatedly cited the big cost, he reinforced a broader, more familiar point that could further undercut executive power and enhance the Supreme Court itself. Roberts was especially active at the Senate chair, asserting the court's authority and his own, during a session that lasted 3.5 hours. Now, in his 18th term, Roberts has sometimes struggled to control his colleagues, the majority of whom reside to his ideological right, but these cases afforded him a commanding presence in an area of the law he's been driving. The 68-year-old Roberts passed an emerging major questions doctrine embraced by the right and generally forbidding agency actions on matters of vast economic and political significance without clear authority from Congress. He showed an attitude towards basic policy choices as he questioned the fairness of federal assistance for a student who had taken out a college loan over someone who had never had a college opportunity and instead started a lawn care service. Along comes the government and tells that person, you don't have to pay your loan, Roberts said of a hypothetical college loan borrower. Nobody's telling the person who's trying to set up the loan service that he doesn't have to pay his loan. He still does, even though his tax dollars are going to support the forgiveness of the loan for the college graduate who's now going to make a lot more than him over the course of his lifetime. So, and I do like the fact that Roberts is bringing this up, because it goes along with what I've been saying from the beginning. This money doesn't just go away. And I don't think that the progressives or even the mainline Democrats have accepted the fact that this money isn't just going away. It's not being pulled out of the economy. It is coming from the taxpayers, the executive branch, with a nod from Congress, which, by the way, that's the other part that I need to figure out how that happens, because then they need to get appropriation from Congress for this, from a Republican Congress, which I don't know how they plan to do that at this point. none of this maths. But I like the fact that Roberts is coming in and saying, no, this money isn't going away, and in fact, the taxpayers are going to be on the hook for this. Can I say that on YouTube? Ron Helton says, or maybe not, Kagan has a history of asking good questions and voting like a... Let's go with a slow person for that. Thank you, Ron Helton. So, that is what we have for that. It's an interesting side of things. I guess we are now going into government officials behaving badly, even though I've got two top stories just specifically about two government officials that have extended periods about them. But yes, this will be our government officials behaving badly segment. Starting with Christopher Wray and Instagram. We will see you next time over here. We are signing off from Instagram right now. We're running out of time, so take care and hit the link in the description. Alright, Instagram is gone. We can talk about them. We could anyway, because they couldn't see your chat, but let's read from CBS News. FBI chief says agency feels COVID pandemic likely started with Chinese lab leak. Which I'm pretty sure we've all known since probably about April of 2020. I've got no author given on this one. For the second day in a row, China on Wednesday dismissed U.S. suggestions that the pinkpox may have been triggered by a virus that leaked from a Chinese laboratory. By the way, subscribe to the backup channel because I don't know if I'm allowed to say any of this on YouTube right now. Responding to comments by the FBI Director Christopher Wray, Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning said the involvement of the U.S. intelligence community was evidence enough of the politicization of the origin tracing. By rehashing the lab leak theory, the U.S. will not succeed in discrediting China, and instead, it will only hurt its own credibility, Mao said. We urge the U.S. to respect science and facts, stop turning the origin tracing into something about politics and intelligence, and stop disrupting social solidarity and origins cooperation, she said. In an interview with Fox News that aired Tuesday, Wray said the FBI has for quite some time now assessed the origins of the pandemic are most likely a potential lab incident in central China's Wuhan. Here you are talking about a potential leak from a Chinese government-controlled lab, Wray said. Let's listen.
I asked you also back then about the investigation into COVID origins. Is the FBI in charge of the investigation of the origins of the coronavirus?
We certainly have a role in looking into the origins of the coronavirus.
Now there's this Department of Energy study that says it's likely to have come from a lab leak, although the confidence is low. It cites the FBI. What is the determination by the FBI?
So, as you note, Brett, the FBI has for quite some time now assessed that the origins of the pandemic are most likely a potential lab incident in Wuhan. Let me step back for a second. You know, the FBI has folks, agents, professionals, analysts, virologists, microbiologists, etc., who focus specifically on the dangers of biological threats, which include things like novel viruses like COVID, and the concerns that in the wrong hands, some bad guys, a hostile nation state, a terrorist, a criminal, the threats that those could pose. So here you're talking about a potential leak from a Chinese government-controlled lab that killed millions of Americans, and that's precisely what that capability was designed for. I should add that our work related to this continues, and there are not a whole lot of details I can share that aren't classified. I will just make the observation that the Chinese government, seems to me, has been doing its best to try to thwart and obfuscate the work here, the work that we're doing, the work that our U.S. government and close foreign partners are doing, and that's unfortunate for everybody.
And again, I mean, this is not new by any stretch of the imagination. We've known that because of where this popped up and the fact that there is a level 4 biolab within a few miles of where patient 0 started off, well, we first started hearing about this and where people first started getting sick. It's not really hard to put 2 and 2 together that we have a novel virus that nobody's ever seen before within a few miles of a virology lab that was studying coronaviruses. The U.S. involvement being with that, there are things that I still can't say on YouTube. And I'm going to be completely frank about that. But we've all known this came from China. For 3 years. Some more about Ray from Fox News. Ray responds to FBI critiques over Hunter laptop. Trump raid January 6th. We're on the American people's side. I can't even say that with a straight face. Holy crap. Even if I'm quoting somebody, I can't say that with a straight face. From Charles Creas. Ray joined special report for a wide-ranging interview as the Bureau continues to receive a bevy of criticism over its handling of several situations, including the Hunter laptop investigation, classification of issues at the school board meetings, and the raid on Mar-a-Lago. Ray defended the agency and the way its agents conduct investigations in an independent manner. Brett Baer asked Ray about the FBI's reputation being at a record low, to which the director said the Bureau's successful recruiting should help disprove any perceived shortcomings. The fact that you are recruiting at a record rate in this politicized environment scares me even more. There are all sorts of opinions out there about the FBI, just like there are every major institution these days, said Ray, who previously served as then New Jersey Governor Chris Christie's attorney during the George Washington Bridge scandal and the W. Justice Department. That should disqualify him from the FBI right then and there. In response, Baer asked about the connection between the reportedly low approval of the FBI and the public's perception of its handling of the Trump-Russia investigation and the Hunter laptop scandal. I hear these claims of politicization, but I can tell you the FBI is and is going to stay independent. And that means following the facts wherever they lead, no matter who likes it. Ray said part of the issue with the FBI's perception is that too often the standard for whether an investigation is fair relies on whether a particular group believes the outcome was just or correct. But that's just not how independence and objectivity work. We are not on either side. The FBI is on the American people's side, on the Constitution's side. Well, if the FBI was on the Constitution's side, then they would disband, because the FBI is in flagrant disregard of the 10th Amendment, especially staying open and continuing to investigate crimes against individuals. The FBI would have a place if they only did matters of interstate commerce. But they don't. They were a temporary agency meant to go after bootlegging in Chicago and other places around the country during Prohibition, who have somehow managed to be re-upped every single time that they come up for a review. Your law enforcement, if you have to have it, should be local. You should have to see, well, first off, you should have to elect the official in charge of your law enforcement, and then you should have to see his agents in the grocery store. Not have some baseless bureau in Washington doing your law enforcement. I prefer we had no law enforcement, but I'm in the minority on that. But if we have to have it, it should be local. as local as humanly possible. I'm not a big fan of the State Patrol, because that's too nameless and faceless for me, for my taste. FBI Director Chris Wray refuses to say what role feds played in the January 6th Selfie Fest. And we do have video of this one. So let me lead it off for just a bit from Daily Wire News. FBI Director Wray refused to disclose during an interview on Tuesday the role the federal law enforcement officials allegedly played on the riot that unfolded at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. Bear read off a tweet from a viewer who asked the FBI director about the person who planted the pipe bombs outside the DNC and RNC, which diverted law enforcement attention and resources on January 6th. Let's listen to that, because that's an interesting take and very tinfoily. However, it's something that I can see as well.
Ford Fisher tweets, what I'd really like to ask the FBI director, on January 5th, 2021, a still unidentified person planted pipe bombs at the DNC and RNC, which diverted law enforcement attention and resources on January 6th. With hundreds of other January 6th defendants arrested over 2 years, how has the bomber still not been caught? Does the FBI director feel confidently that they will someday be brought to justice?
Well, I will say that I have enormous confidence in the team, the dedicated team that is focused exclusively on that investigation, and we have devoted loads and loads of effort into that specific investigation. We've done investigative publicity, calling for the public's help, and so our folks are working very, very hard on that investigation, and those folks, those FBI agents, analysts, and professional staff, I have total confidence in them.
And the other Twitter question we get a lot is, did the FBI have undercover agents or paid informants or assets among the mob that stormed the Capitol on January 6th?
Well, as I'm sure you can appreciate, Brett, I can't really appropriately talk about when, where, and how we use confidential informants.
Is it classified?
Well, we have information that is about any number of topics that is law enforcement sensitive, but you should not read into my inability to answer a question because of my obligations as that as a clue or a hint in any way about how accurate
Are you serious?
Your reader's tweet is.
You can tell this guy's a lawyer. I said what I said, but don't read into what I said because I didn't technically say what I said. And I'm not going to tell you that there were informants out there. Alright, so that's what we have for Wray, but we also had Garland out in front of Congress. So we're going to start with the generality of CNN takeaways from AG Garland's Senate Judiciary Committee hearing. From Devon Cole, Hannah Rabinovitz, and Tierney Sneed. A.G. Garland appeared before a Senate committee on Wednesday, where he faced a colorful array of questions on everything from the federal investigation into Hunter Biden to the sale of deadly drugs, Taylor Swift tickets, and FBI investigations. Why are you giving me any questions about Taylor Swift tickets? Garland's nearly 4-hour-long hearing before the Democratic-controlled Senate Judiciary Committee marked his first trip to Capitol Hill this year. It comes as investigations into President Brandon and former President Trump have taken center stage in recent months. The AG's opening statement touched on topics like efforts to combat the rise of violent crime and hate crimes, work to protect reproductive freedom across the country, and the department's accomplishments in partnering with the Ukrainian government against Russian aggression. 3 things that the federal government should have no involvement in. Alright, here are the takeaways. Garland says he has not interfered in the Biden probe. Garland stressed he will not interfere with the Delaware U.S. Attorney's ongoing investigation into Hunter Biden that is focused on taxes and other issues. Well, he doesn't necessarily need to interfere with it while it's going on, all he needs to do, and by the way, this is a distinct possibility. All that he needs to do is when the charges get recommended against the president's son, he takes them and he does to them what Nancy Pelosi did to Trump's State of the Union copy. Well, I've pledged not to interfere with that investigation, and I've carried through on my pledge, Garland said, responding to questions from Chuck Grassley on The Probe. Garland reiterated that the U.S. Attorney in Delaware, David Weiss, has full authority to carry out the investigation and to bring in another jurisdiction if necessary. Garland said Weiss is not to be denied anything that he needs. Garland disavows memo referring to radical traditionalist Catholics. Garland disavowed an FBI field office memo that seemed to suggest the FBI was targeting radical traditionalist Catholics, calling the memo appalling and saying the FBI is investigating its origins. It's appalling! It's appalling! The FBI has withdrawn it, and now it's looking into how this could ever happen. Garland continued, the FBI is not targeting Catholics, and as I've said, this is an inappropriate memorandum. And it doesn't reflect the methods that the FBI is supposed to be using. Which may be fair, but it reflects the methods that the FBI is using. Should not be relying on any single organization without doing its own work. Tense exchange over DOJ and parents. Garland at one point engaged in a tense back and forth with John Kennedy of Louisiana about debunked claims that under his leadership the DOJ was trying to interfere with parents' ability to make complaints about schools. Debunked claims, we know that it happened. They put out a memo calling the parents domestic terrorists. That is not a debunked claim. The claim stems from a 2021 letter from the National School Board Association asking the DOJ to deal with the uptick in threats against education officials, equating that activity to domestic terrorism. Garland released a memo encouraging federal and local authorities to work together against the harassment campaigns leveled at schools, but never endorsed the domestic terrorism notion. Okay, by asking federal authorities to work with local authorities based on a letter that says domestic terrorism, you kind of did endorse the notion. I did not do that. I did not issue any memorandum directing the investigation of parents who are concerned with their children. Oh, I missed a paragraph there. Don't you understand the chilling effect that it would have to parents when you issued the directive? When you directed your criminal divisions and your counterterrorism divisions to investigate parents who are angry at school boards and administrators during COVID. And then he said he didn't do that. Yeah, you did. That sentence right there, that clause right there, says, yes, you did. Targeting online sales of deadly drugs, the war on drugs that'll never end, and continue to put government undesirables in prison. Dick Durbin, a Democrat, pushed Garland on whether social media companies should be liable for illegal sale of deadly drugs, comparing their online sale to a suicide pact. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think 230 has become a suicide pact, Durbin said. We've basically said to these companies, you're absolved from liability, make money, and deaths result from it, and we have a responsibility. I'm sorry, what? Garland agreed that we do have to do something to force tech platforms to provide information to search their own platforms for sales of illegal drugs, and pledged the committee that has the DOJ's support in efforts to reduce the online sale of deadly drugs and target algorithms that may be boosting their sales. Yeah, you've been doing that for 50 years. It has yet to work. War on drugs. Security for Supreme Court justices. Garland was grilled by Utah Republican Mike Lee about the absence of charges after demonstrators protested for weeks in front of justices' residencies in the wake of the leaked opinion to overturn Roe v. Wade opinion under a law that prohibits picketing or parading in front of a federal judge's home. It is concerning to me, Lee said, when you show up at the homes of a public official, you're sending the message of implicit violence. The AG said that he did not know if the department had brought any cases under the statute. They didn't. But Garland said that the thing that mattered was his move after the leak of the draft opinion in order to U.S. Marshals to protect the justices and their homes 24/7. No AG has ever ordered that before, and no Justice Department has ever done that before, Garland said, adding that the 70-plus U.S. Marshals were deployed for the protection of the justices. They're on site, but their priority is job is protection, Garland said, and that's why when someone did come to assault Justice Kavanaugh, he had to go away from where they were because there were 2 marshals in front of the house, and eventually he self-reported. How the U.S. Marshals handled the alleged assassination attempt against Kavanaugh has been scrutinized. The man accused of attempting the attack was only apprehended after he texted his sister, and she called 911, according to information released by local law enforcement. So those are the CNN takeaways. We're going to look a little bit in depth into some of these. From Politico, Garland promises free rein for prosecutors probing Hunter Biden. From John Gerstein, AG Garland pledged Wednesday that U.S. attorney pursuing a criminal probe of President Biden's son Hunter has broad independence to pursue appropriate charges, including bringing a case outside of the prosecutor's base in Delaware if that's necessary. Testifying at a Senate oversight hearing that lasted over 4 hours, Garland was pressed by Chuck Grassley to promise that U.S. Attorney for Delaware David Weiss wouldn't face bureaucratic obstacles if he decides that Hunter should be prosecuted outside of his home state. The U.S. Attorney had been advised that he has the full authority to make those referrals you're talking about or to bring cases in other districts if he needs to do that, Garland said. He has been advised that he should get anything he needs. I have not heard anything from that office that suggests they are not able to do anything the U.S. Attorney wants them to do. When Garland was nominated as AG, he agreed to leave Weiss, an appointee of former President Trump, in place to complete his Hunter Biden investigation. While offering those assurances about independence, Garland did not share any substantive update on the investigation into the president's son, which he can't anyway. Even if there's an update, he can't do that. The probe is reportedly focused on Hunter's failure for years to pay a federal income tax bill that eventually amounted to $1 million, and a false statement Hunter allegedly made about his drug use when purchasing a gun in 2018. Hunter said that he is confident the investigation will clear him of wrongdoings. And again, the problem with this is not the fact that the investigation is going to be hindered. I don't think the investigation is going to be hindered. I really don't. I'm dead serious on that. I think that Weiss is going to be able to investigate whatever he wants. And then it's going to go back and show up in front of Weiss, or in front of Garland, to bring federal charges forward, which under the National Firearms Act, the FBI does have the jurisdiction, and so does the U.S. Justice Department, over the background check form. And Garland's going to come back and tear that up, tear it in half, and say, I'm not prosecuting this. Even with all of the evidence that is there, and could potentially still be there. They don't care. And that's one of the problems that we have with this particular iteration of the federal government. They're not trying to hide their corruption. They're doing it right in front of you. They know the wrong has been done already. And they're still going to continue to do that. And laugh at you. And call you a conspiracy theorist when you call them on it. From the New York Post, A.G. Garland claims fentanyl unleashed on purpose in U.S. by cartels. From Josh Christensen, A.G. Garland told senators Wednesday that the fentanyl epidemic ravaging the U.S. has been unleashed on purpose by the Sinaloa and the New Generation Jalisco cartels. I'll be talking about that in just a bit too, by the way. Katie Hobbs having an accusation laid against her for that. I don't know if it's true or not. She denies it vehemently. Judiciary Committee Chairman Dick Durbin kicked off his hearing by telling Garland that ranking member Lindsey Graham has basically challenged me. And I accept the challenge to show as much concern about the gun deaths, show as much concern about fentanyl deaths in this country, and I want to do that. When Graham's turn came to speak, he said that lawmakers needed to up our game when it comes to fentanyl, sugar, and asked why the Justice Department was not designating Mexican drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations or upping mandatory minimums for known fentanyl dealers. There is no strategy that I can discern about how to deal with the poisoning of Americans through fentanyl, Graham added. Garland deflected many of Graham's questions, referring him variously to the Defense Department, State Department, and Department of Homeland Security. He also put the onus on the Mexican government, saying that it was helping us, but they could not do much more. There's no question about that. Well, what we can do with respect to the jurisdictions that we have, he said, noting that he has personally met with families of children and teenagers and young adults, and even with the elderly who have taken these pills. John Cornyn laid the blame on the Biden admin for the state of affairs, pointing to a porous southern border overwhelmed with drug traffickers. And again, I want to point out, and we always get the question, oh, well, they're apprehending more people. They're picking more up at this point. So they're enforcing the border. If they're picking up that much, how much more is coming through? That's my question. That's just what's getting caught. And these cartel leaders aren't afraid to get caught with stuff. They're not going to face any repercussions for it. Cornyn also noted a December 2022 DOJ memo that recommended prosecutors not enforce mandatory minimums for certain drug crimes. Now, there shouldn't be mandatory minimums anyway. The war on drugs has failed. You've arrogated yourself the decision to make policy by saying that in spite of the fact that there are mandatory minimums for many of these drug crimes, which are now causing untold death and destruction across America, you're telling prosecutors, don't charge those if they involve a mandatory minimum, Cornyn charged. After Garland insisted the memo's recommendation did not apply to violent crimes or drug trafficking, Cornyn accused the AG of cherry-picking cases. Which cases you will charge with a mandatory minimum and not applying them uniformly and charging the most serious crime that can be proven at trial. And finally, and then I've got some video to go with this too. But the last one that we have on reading comes from Fox News. Cruz accuses Garland of politicizing DOJ. AG fires back in heated exchange. From Anders Hagstrom. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get the video of this one. No, we're not. But we'll talk a bit about it. Ted Cruz got into a heated exchange with A.G. Garland during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing on Wednesday. Cruz accused Garland of politicizing the DOJ and prosecuting pro-life groups and conservatives more aggressively than liberal groups. Cruz cited mass protests outside the homes of conservative justices after Dobbs was leaked last year. Have you brought one single case against any of these protesters threatening Justice Kavanaugh? Have you brought even one? Which, in fairness to Garland, he did, but he kind of got caught with his pants down. He had to. Well, the guy who walked away from the marshals. He had no choice in that. Believe me, if that hadn't been made public, I think that dude would walk too. Senator, you asked me whether I sat on my hands, and quite the opposite. I sent 70 U.S. Marshals to defend, Garland said before being cut off. Let me try again. Has the Department of Justice brought even a single case under that statute? It's a yes-no question. It's not an invitation to give a speech on those other things you did. The jobs of the U.S. Marshals is to defend the lives of, Garland said before getting cut off again. So the answer is no. The answer is no. Why aren't you willing to say no? You know it's no. I know it's no. Everyone in this hearing room knows it's no. You're not willing to answer the question, have you brought a case under the statute, yes or no? As far as I know, we haven't, Garland responded. What we have done is defended the lives of the justices with 70 U.S. Marshals. So, he did. He didn't bring anything except for the attempted murder charge. And again, that was more of a he got caught with his pants down moment. We've got some video. Hawley fiercely grills Garland over arrest of Mark Houck in front of his children. Let's listen.
Why did the Justice Department do this? Why did you send 20 to 30 SWAT-style agents and a SWAT-style team to this guy's house when everybody else had declined to prosecute and he'd offered to turn himself in? Let's take a look at the hardened criminals that your Justice Department sent these armed agents to go terrorize on that morning. Here they are. Here they are at Mass. Here's the 7 children with Mr. Houck and his wife. In this early morning, they were all at home. Mrs. Houck has said repeatedly the children were screaming. They feared for their lives. What's really interesting to me is this seems to directly contradict your own memorandum about the use of force at the Justice Department. You say officers may use only the force that is objectively reasonable to effectively control an incident. Are you telling me that in your opinion as Attorney General, it was objectively necessary to use 20 or 30 SWAT-style agents with long guns and ballistic shields for these people?
What I'm saying is that decisions about how to go about this were made on the ground by FBI agents.
So you're saying you don't know?
I'm saying what I just said.
Which is that you're abdicating responsibility?
I'm not abdicating responsibility.
Then give me the answer. Do you think, in your opinion, you are the Attorney General of the United States? You are in charge of the Justice Department. And yes, sir, you are responsible. So give me an answer.
The FBI does not agree with your description.
I'm not asking about the FBI. You are the Attorney General. Give me your answer. Do you think that it was objectively reasonable and they followed your guidelines in sending 20 to 30 armed agents to terrorize these people? Yes or no?
The facts I have, which are those presented by the FBI, are not consistent with your description.
So you think it was reasonable?
I'm saying the facts are not as you describe.
What, that the children weren't there? That there weren't long guns there? That there weren't agents? What do you dispute? What's the factual premise you dispute? Be specific.
FBI said they don't agree with your description of...
Be specific. They don't agree with what?
Of how many agents, of the agents who were there, and of what their roles were. They don't agree.
Apparently, on your watch, this Justice Department is targeting Catholics, targeting people of faith, specifically for their faith views. And Mr. Attorney General, I'll just say to you, it's a disgrace.
Now, as far as the video goes with Mark Houck, there may be other video out there that I have not seen. We did see the video where they were taking him away in the car, which was excessive in and of itself because, we've got the woman out here crying, and they do this at 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning when the sun is just peeking out. Not answering questions, several vehicles out there. I don't know if there was a SWAT-style team out there. Unfortunately, I think unless there's another video that I've not seen, and I will defer to it if there's another video that I've seen, I would need to see more evidence to support Senator Hawley's position off this. But just the reaction that we had to him being arrested from the video that I have seen has been excessive. All right, what else do we have? GOP senators confront Garland on protesters outside the homes of Supreme Court justices, which we've got 2 videos here, including the one from Ted Cruz. Let's check this one.
Thank you, Attorney General Garland. I want to echo briefly what Senator Klobuchar described. I hope you'll look at our letter and investigate thoroughly those issues. As you know, I've long respected you, and I've long respected your department. I have become concerned recently that notwithstanding the great men and women who serve and have served for generations in the Department of Justice, there are some things that lead me to wonder whether some actions are being politicized within the department. One example of this relates to 18 U.S.C. Section 1507. Ever since the leak of the Dobbs opinion and then the issuance of the Dobbs opinion by the Supreme Court last summer, we've had protesters who have been showing up at the homes of Supreme Court justices, carrying signs, picketing, shouting. It's very clear that they're trying to influence, in one way or another, those serving on the United States Supreme Court, trying to influence jurisprudence. And yet, not one person, to my knowledge, has been prosecuted for such things under 18 U.S.C. Section 1507. About 2 weeks ago, this committee invited some officials from the Department of Justice to brief committee staff on protests at the justices' homes and ask about any arrests that have been made or might be made for people engaged in that behavior. The briefers came to the briefing and informed staff that they hadn't read Section 1507. I assume you've read it, of course. Just wondering why the department would schedule such a briefing on a statute without having read it, and especially why no actions have been brought under Section 1507 for these actions. I've got a lot to cover. Can you answer that?
I'll try to answer all these questions together.
Just tell me, am I right in concluding that you haven't brought any charges under 1507?
So I don't know the answer to that. We have the thing that mattered, and as soon as the Dobbs draft leaked, I ordered the marshals to do something that the United States Marshals had never in history done before, which was protect the justices' homes, residence, and lives 24/7. No Attorney General had ever ordered that before, and no Justice Department had ever done that before.
Which is terrific. That's fantastic.
So I'm getting to the why. So we sent more than 70 U.S. Marshals for this purpose. Those marshals' priority is protection of the lives of the justices and their families. They are on site, but their priority job is protection. That is why when someone did come to assault Justice Kavanaugh, he had to go away from where they were because there were 2 marshals in front of the house, and eventually he self-reported himself.
Okay, and just like we said when we read in the article from, was it Politico? No, the New York Post. No, who was the one that did that? Oh, the CNN article. That's the one that we're reading from. Yeah, it's awesome that the U.S. Marshals were there and doing the protection, but these protesters out there were breaking one of the very few laws that I agree with, and there are not many of them on the books. They were breaking one of the few laws that I agree with, the fact that you should not be able to influence a judge's decision by going and protesting in front of that judge's house. Justice is supposed to be blind. And the Ted Cruz exchange.
How do you decide which criminal statutes the DOJ enforces and which one it doesn't?
The United States Marshals know that they have full authority.
I recognize you want to give a separate speech.
No, I don't want to
How do you decide which statutes you enforce and which ones you don't?
The marshals on scene make that determination in light of the priority of defense.
The marshals do not make a determination over whether to prosecute. You, the Attorney General, make a determination, and you spent 20 years as a judge, and you're perfectly content with justices being afraid for their children's lives. and you did nothing to prosecute it. Let's shift to another area.
Can I answer the question?
No,
The
you
Attorney
cannot.
General,
You have refused to answer the
I am
question.
answering your question. The
How did
Attorney
you
General
choose
does not decide whether to arrest.
How did you choose not to enforce this statute?
The marshals on scene.
Marshals don't make that decision.
They do make the decision of whether to make an arrest.
Prosecute someone? No, they don't.
If they make
Marshals do not have prosecution.
If they make an arrest,
all right,
then it goes to the
let's change
marshals.
topics because our time is limited.
I kind of don't really agree with Ted Cruz on this one either, because there is the step that's in there that the marshals do have to come forward and make the arrest. Now, were they told not to make the arrest by the direction of the DOJ? That's going to be the question that needs to be answered there. But yes, in order for the prosecution to come, then there does have to, like, law enforcement does have to bring something to the Department of Justice. All right, and the last one, Garland claims ignorance about leaks from Trump Biden docs investigations. There's no video on this one. I'm going to skip this one. All right, let's talk about Katie Hobbs, and we're going to go a little bit late because I started a little bit late today, so I'm going to go until 8:18. Because when did we start? 7:18? I don't even know. I suppose I can go back through my Twitter and see, because I made the announcement. I got something interesting for tomorrow already. So we'll go till 8:15 because we started at 6:15 today. So from the post-millennial, and shockingly enough, nobody in the mainstream media is covering the accusation side, but they're right there to cover her "yes, slay queen" reaction to it. So we're going to read from the post-millennial to start. Katie Hobbs accused of receiving Sinaloa cartel bribes. From Olivia Rondeau, who has appeared indirectly on this channel before. Well, the audio channel, not this channel. Olivia Rondeau interviewed my former co-host, which meant that she got free advertisement on the audio platform for a RedNet show. A California-based law firm has accused Katie Hobbs, Secretary of State Adrian Fontes, run back election services, and a slew of other election officials. Mayors, judges, city councilmen, and county supervisors in the state are receiving bribes from the Sinaloa cartel. During a Thursday hearing before the Senate Elections and Municipal Oversight and Elections Joint Committee, the principal investigator for the Harris-Thaler Law Corporation, Jacqueline Brager, presented their shocking findings detailing how a money laundering investigation in the Midwest revealed alleged corruption in Arizona. In 2006, the U.S. Attorney's offices in Illinois, Indiana, and Iowa investigated the laundering of drug cartel monies through a complex series of single-family home purchases in those states. Brager told the committee by 2009, numerous real estate agents, escrow companies, and title insurers had been indicted, charged, and convicted of racketeering. In 2014, our office was asked to review a case, file, and determine whether monies from the sales of the properties had filtered to property purchases in Arizona, specifically Maricopa and Pima. The Sinaloa cartel is notorious for being led by the infamous El Chapo, the Mexican drug lord whose real name, Joaquin Archibaldo Guzman Loera, who is widely considered to have been one of the most powerful drug traffickers in the world before his capture in 2016. According to the investigator, it was concluded that several real estate agents in Iowa had set up a laundering system in Arizona and thereafter had transferred the proceeds of sales to Panamanian corporations. In 2018, Mr. Thaler discovered, incidental to another matter, a series of trust deeds evidencing that cash laundering through single-family residencies in Arizona was pervasive and ongoing. Brager continued with that. A new investigation began, with the focus being on money laundering and related racketeering activities in Maricopa and several other Arizona counties. The Harris-Thaler office currently represents the several parties directly damaged by the racketeering activity, which, by the way, is one of the things that's driving housing prices up. In the nearly 100-page report, Brager dug into the entire investigation, naming Donna Ray Chavez, a resident of Mesa, and her daughter Brittany Ray Chavez as principal preparers of the documents necessary to effect the racketeering enterprises. To date, more than 10,000 falsified documents have been recorded with the Maricopa County Recorder. We estimate that more than 35,000 warranty deeds, trust deeds, evidencing fraudulent transactions exist in the database. 11. The number of falsified notarizations exceeds 15,000. 12. Donna and Brittany's participation in racketeering also includes facilitation of bribes to public officials, tax evasion, payroll theft, bankruptcy fraud, insurance fraud, and extortion. Brager said. The money funneled from false house deeds in Midwestern states back to Arizona went to politicians and election officials, according to the investigators. The election fraud has been going on since 2004, Brager alleged. Since 2004, elections within Pima and Maricopa have been manipulated through infiltration of the county databases resulting from bribes paid to executives at election service providers, including, but not limited to, principals of Rundeck Election Services, she said. In addition to impacting local elections, bribes and infiltration were used to affect the outcomes of the races during the November 3rd, 2020 election, including the outcome of the race for Maricopa County Recorder and the outcome of the November 8th, 2022 election for Governor, Secretary of State, and AG. Brager continued, saying the public officials who have received bribes include multiple state office holders, local office holders, county supervisors, judges of the Maricopa County Superior Court, judges of several city courts, including 2 presiding judges, judges' assistants, prosecutors within certain cities within Maricopa, prosecutors for Maricopa, peripheral legal specialists, including attorneys, approved mental health care providers, court-appointed advisors, and related specialists. Wow, that's a lot of legalese. On page 85 of the report, the list of Arizona officials who allegedly have falsified deeds in the purported money laundering scheme include 40 names, notably including Governor Hobbs, Adrian Fontes, Kirsten Sinema, Ruben Gallego, John Gillis, Mesa Mayor, Arizona Speaker of the House, Ben Toma, as well as Maricopa County Supervisor Bill Gates, Thomas Galvin, and Clint Hickman. And this is huge if this is true, and Brendan Thaler is saying they have unequivocal evidence. So, I would need to dig into this more and see what their unequivocal evidence is, and of course it does also need to be brought before a jury, but, I mean, this is massive. If this is true, because this changes a lot of things in this country, especially in a big swing state like this. And then the question comes is what happened in states that changed their election laws weeks before the election? Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, etc. But Hobbs firing back from Arizona's family, 3, CBS 5. Governor Hobbs' response to allegations accusing leaders of being bribed by cartel. From Dennis Welch. Katie Hobbs on Tuesday slammed election deniers for hosting a legislative hearing last week that publicly smeared her and other elected officials. A key witness at last week's hearing accused politicians, judges, and other officials of taking bribes from a Mexican drug cartel without evidence. It makes the legislature, quite honestly, a laughingstock, and Arizona by extension, and I hope folks are held accountable for this, Hobbs said during a news conference. Which kind of tells me that somebody's going to use the power of the government to go after political enemies. These were the governor's first public comments since the joint hearing on elections on Thursday went completely off the rails. During the hearing, an insurance agent from Scottsdale was allowed to present unsupported claims of election fraud. There's so much editorializing of this already. And bribery, she accused the governor and others on both sides of the aisle of being in the pockets of the Sinaloa cartel. Hobbs said she's exploring ways to respond, but for now, she'd rather lawmakers focus on pressing issues like water, housing, and inflation. These are all really critical issues that should be having a full day legislative hearings, and we're not. Instead, we're having these circus shows, Hobbs said. I'm kind of interested in the way that the post-millennial, who is considered by those who do the green check verification, like, I don't use the post-millennial very often for a reason. It's not green check verified. It is considered to be opinion and not certified as objective by NewsGuard. But they're actually coming out and saying objective. Here is the evidence, here's what they're bringing forward, here is what they're showing. And the green check verified, which AZ Central is green check verified, is saying, nuh-uh, look at all these unsupported claims. Don't look at the actual evidence, just trust us when we say it's unsupported. Let's do one more. And then we'll head out of here for the night. One last one, and then we're done. From Politico, Kinzinger, the homeless Republican, launches ad campaign against extremism. From Nicholas Wu, Adam Kinzinger is gone from Congress and the January 6th committee, but he's still raging against what he sees as dangerous political extremism. The Illinois Republicans political organization is launching a nationwide campaign urging voters to reject extreme candidates on both sides of the aisle. Ahead of the 2024 elections, the centerpiece of the campaign is a nearly 6-minute-long short film titled Break Free, inspired by Apple's 1984 Super Bowl ad about escaping the conformity of non-Apple computers. I have not seen this ad yet, by the way, but I'm going to find it, and we're going to watch it here tomorrow, if I can find it. Because this, I think we can watch. By the way, I listened to the Scott Adams clip, and I don't think that I can put that back on YouTube. I think that I will have a week off from YouTube if I put that up. In the political ads twist, people are forced to wear blue and red tinted goggles showing them divisive images and broadcasts from a Big Brother type character. Until they take them off and escape, a monologue from Kinzinger urges Americans to reject political extremes. Yes, only support the Uniparty. What we're showing by the video is we've been programmed so much to believe that there's only two choices to everything. The other side is our enemy. Well, you're the government, so you're my enemy to begin with. That each event in the world should be seen through blue or red glasses, Kinzinger said in an interview, and we're saying there's a completely different way. He said the nationwide campaign's rollout, which will include TV, digital, billboard, and guerrilla marketing, will involve spending close to $250,000 or more. Shorter versions of the video will be displayed too. And as an example of what Kinzinger described as performance art, people have been spotted around Capitol Hill, wearing the all-white costumes from the video. The former congressman said the display was also meant to draw attention to how many lawmakers on Capitol Hill were just looking for that next social media opportunity and not trying to do what their constituents need. Oh, you mean like going on the January 6th committee? It's just another way to put that into perspective, he added, and it's a little creepy too. Dude, you live for social media. Pot kettle, Kinzinger. So, yeah, he's gonna come out and do the poor me. I'm such a pariah now because of what the extremists did to me. And I see through it. This is another ploy to come back and pull BLT to the Uniparty, of which he enjoyed being a part of for his entire tenure in Congress. Alright, we're going to close out the show here, and I want to just talk just a bit again. It's Wednesday. Something that I'm thankful for, something that restores my faith in humanity. Now, I've made a lot of comment about how glad I am that I moved back closer to where I grew up. How much better it's working out for me in the job front. You know, the fact that I can go out and do things for my parents at this point. There are a lot of positives to what I did and how I made basically life better for myself by doing this, but I had a really, really concrete example pop up for me this past weekend. I had said that I wasn't going to be doing a game stream this weekend, and I was going to be starting next weekend, which I still plan to do this weekend. I want to go back into Zelda and get some more stuff done after I get off work on Saturday. But just on Saturday, because I do have to get up and go back to my parents on Sunday for another family event. But something happened. I'm not going to go into the details. But it happened to my dad, and I happened to be there. And it was a point of fear for me. Now, I had been planning, with the things that have been happening in my personal life here, just going off there and doing some work and throwing some wood around and really taking some stress off from this, and I wound up being more stressed off of that. But really, honestly, and I bring this out into the religious aspect of this too, the Lord put me at my parents' house this weekend. He really did. I've made all the decisions and all the right decisions, and I do feel sometimes like I'm being herded into doing certain things, with moving across the state, with needing to, like, a lot of things really do seem like I needed to be where I was at the time. When the Kenosha riots happened, I needed to be out of Kenosha, but close enough that I could go back and report. And be there for family when they needed me to be down there. It just happened to be fate that when my cousin got vertigo, I was working with him directly at a point where he would have been working alone in any other situation. If I hadn't moved when I did, I don't know what would happen to my cousin. He was laying down, working on a water leak in a hole, and he just kind of rolled over, and any motion was causing him great agony, to the point where we did take him, got him loaded up on an ambulance, and sent him over to the local hospital. I don't know what would have happened at that point had I not been there. I don't know if he'd have had the wherewithal to get his own phone. I was the one that called in for the ambulance ride. And again, it was almost like I needed to be there at that time, plus be able to go back and do the work around the campground at the time. I don't like to prescribe to the thought of fate, because I don't like feeling like I'm out of control of my own life, but it has been seeming, especially most lately, in the last few weeks, that I've been being herded to a specific situation. I don't know what the end goal is. Maybe I'm going to tell you right off the bat, there may actually be a situation where the bottom falls out again. It's entirely possible. It is humanly possible that that's what the Lord has planned for me. But what I can tell you is this, is that being closer to home, I needed to be there, and I needed to be at my parents' house this weekend at the exact moment that I was. And I'm thankful for that. And Ron got his stickers back. You know what's weird is that on DLive there actually was there's no studio option. Like, I can't go back and go into studio mode. I can go into the viewer mode and I can see myself, and I'm looking at myself right now, but yeah, as far as studio, like where I had the back end where I could see details, edit stream information, etc., that's not there. I don't know where it is. But I have no, like, if I was only streaming to DLive and not anything else without using Restream as a buffer, there's nothing there for me to do that. But I do have all my stickers. Except they're not coming up. My stickers aren't coming up now. That's weird. Maybe I can't put stickers in my own stream. I don't know. But we're done. We're out of here for the night. We will catch up with all the rest of the stuff that we have tonight. And I think most of what I have here is things I like and things that I hate. So that'll be interesting. But let's throw up some outro music and let's head out of here for the day. All right, number one, first off, reminder. Even though it's only it's still a full couple days away yet, there will be no dedicated live chat segment this coming Friday. We are moving that to Monday as of next week. So we'll get an extra long segment of reading who chatted in the live chat in the notebook on Monday, and still hopefully see some of your chats as well. Looking forward to that. But yeah, no dedicated live chat segment this week. But with that, we'll be back here tomorrow at 6 p.m. Unless I work late again, then it'll probably be 6:15 again. But we'll be back here tomorrow with more news, more headlines, and more contemporary, talking about what's happening with this, catching up with some of the last things that we have going on here. We'll be talking about Biden targeting whites and Asians with the IRS, or at least the accusation, and DC's non-citizen voting bill coming into law, so we'll be talking about that. Plus an update on the Roald Dahl story that I've been waiting a week to talk about here. So a lot of stuff happening, plus whatever happens in the world, and specifically in our local news and politics in the next 22 hours. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing where we go, and hopefully maybe seeing a little bit of that crash so I can go out and buy a house. We don't know. We will see what happens then. Looking forward to seeing you guys here tomorrow and bring some more people with you. We will see you then. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.
Ah, cool. Okay. What's up, Ed, boy? Is there anything I'm missing in here? Thank you for the raid. Welcome. How was your podcast today? So I take it I need to go to another place. That's such crap. Oh, I like how they fall into the water, though. That's cute. Like, no, I didn't mean to fall in the water. Well, I guess I can pick up some money. No spoilers. This won't be the next game for me, but it's on my list. This game isn't that great. I'm telling you that right now. And you're probably asking, well, if you don't think it's that great, why are you playing it? Well, the last time I played this game was when it released, and that was 16 years ago. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe I'll give it another shot. Wait, is this where I came from? Okay. So, I don't have fond memories. I don't want to say I don't have fond memories. I hardly have any memories of this game, to be honest. I remember purchasing it and playing it, enjoying it enough, but at the time, but in reflection, I don't remember it being very good, so. I come back to gaming on Saturday, finishing A Link to the Past, doing Black Flag, Diablo 3, StarCraft 2. Jeez, you're gonna be busy. Wait, I'm trying to figure out where I need to go next. Is it this way? Where are the monkeys? They're gone! Alright, I'm sorry. My boys Kiki and Coco, I'm sorry. I was like, Kiki, and then she was like, whatever. This is my United States of whatever. My husband played me that song, and I'm like, this is the stupidest song ever, but it lives rent-free in my head. Alright. Alright, kids. There you go. Oh crap, I let go too fast. Oh well. Going to start No Man's Sky. I was thinking about that game like just a bit ago. Because I was